We start with the altruistic motivation. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in a state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Dagla dangwa je pe dra no pa je pe ge. Tarpa dang tam she ken pe bar du jo par je pa tam she ki so je pe. Manam ka dam yam pe sem chen tam she de wa dang den. Dog now dang drel nor du la na me pa yang dag par zog pe zhang ju brin po she to pa ja. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Te she du sang ma ge gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Ma she bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Du de ring ne song te ni ma sang ta sam gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities and the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities and the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Transcend sawa danger pa je pe pao den la ma dam pa nam la kab su chi o. Yedam kil gorgi la sok nam la kab su chi o. Sangye chom den de nam la kab su chi o. Tam pe cho nam la kab su chi o. Pa pe ke du nam la kab su chi o. Pa wo ka dro cho kyung song me song yes she gi chang dang dem pa nam la kab su chi o. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. And the previous Buddhas, as the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Shangju Ning Po Chi Ki Bar Sangye Nam La Kyab Su Chi Chodang Shang Shub Sampa Yi So Klang De Shin Kyab Su Chi Jitar Non Gi De Shegi Shang Shub Tug Ni Ke Padang Shang Shub Sampe La Pala De Dag Rim Shin E Patar De Shin Dro La Pendandu Shang Shub Samni Ke Gishing De Shin Du Ni La Pala Rimpa Shindu La Pa Ji O. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye Chodang Soki Chodam La Shang Shu Baidu Dagni Kapsu Chi Dagi Jin Soki Pe So Nam Gi Drola Penshir Sangye Ju Pa Sho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pesam centam she dewadang dewe gurdang dampa jorchi. Dog now, dong do now, gi gu dong draw war Georgie. Dog now may pay de wa dong me draw war Georgie. May ring jack dong ni dong draw way, dong nam la ne pa Georgie. And then page 12, please. The Sagari Mati requested sutra in English. Likewise be extinguished all enemies to my purpose. Whatever evil forces are in me, be defeated. Do this so that when I am victorious, all pure radiance melts into me completely purified. Take all this knowledge, food, and drink peacefully, enjoy it, and be satisfied, so that all obstacles may be destroyed. Be liberated from all obstacles, all general obstacles. Maras are defeated by this gesture of the Buddha. By reciting this mantra, may all the Maras be purified. As a result, may all the Maras be defeated. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I've got right now pollen allergy has got a little bound up in my nasal passages. Okay, so we're continuing our talk about the 6 human realms. Does anybody have any questions or comments that you'd like to make about anything that we've talked about thus far? Okay. So I think it's important to talk about our mind a little bit, what the mind is. So we talked that there is our everyday mind consciousness, and that there is our primordial mind awareness. So our everyday mind consciousness can be broken down into 8 consciousnesses. So I hope you're taking notes because this is very good stuff. So this is an introduction to the mind. So so this intellectual mind, this everyday mind consciousness, is within our brain, within our our little mind. The primordial mind is in our heart center. So what happens? The two are connected, but they're separated by our obscurations, by our confusions. In other words, our everyday mind is still operating very well all day, every day, no problem. But what's being blocked up is the connection point between our intellectual mind and our spiritual mind, our primordial mind. So those obscurations are afflictive emotions and our incorrect mental misconceptions, as well as our habitual tendencies. So our job by becoming a bodhisattva is to recognize those blockages, what's caused those blockages, what the blockages are, and then how to remove those blockages. So that's all in part of the Dharma teachings. As we are doing that, we begin to get shards of light, if you will, that come through those blockages that are covering up our primordial wisdom. Because as we're realizing things begin to loosen up and shards of light begin to come through. And those are those aha moments. Those moments of remembrance, those moments of oh, that's it. So we get those things and they become more and more stable with us. We're able to remember them more and more. We become more and more, they become who we are. You know, it's within us, but the blockages go away. So that light becomes more of who we are on an everyday basis. Not only do we have this everyday consciousness, but we have this primordial consciousness that is now shining through, that is coming through. So these everyday consciousnesses, so the first 5 are the 5 of our eyes, of our ears, of our nose, of our tongue, and of our touch, of our fingers, our skin. So those are the 5 of our senses. Then the 6th one is our brain that is processing that is receiving that. So an analogy here is our eyes see. That's what they do. They see. It's like a camera. If you take the lens cap off of the camera, the lens is seeing everything that it's pointed at. And that image is then imprinted either on a digital memory or on a film. But there's no process, there's no thought about what that image is. It's just the lens, it's just the image, and it's just the whatever it's imprinted on. So those first 5 senses are like that. They're just seeing, they're just hearing, they're just smelling, tasting, and touching. No prejudice, no judgment at all. It's imprinted on in the brain, but the brain at this point is not making a judgment about it. It's just recognizing, oh, there's that image, oh, there's that sound, or something like that. So the next consciousness is the consciousness of what we call the klesha consciousness, or the I, me, mine. Mine, M-I-N-E, mine. I, me, mine. So this is the consciousness of the self who is aware of all these things. So this is again within the brain. So this is the ego is tied up in this. Our human nature is tied up in this. All the thoughts that we process from this, the five senses coming into the brain are being processed with this, how it all relates to me. The I, me, mine. I do this. This affects me. This is mine. And so on, the identity. So that's the seventh consciousness, is what we call the klesha consciousness. Klesha is a Sanskrit word. It's spelled Klesha, klesha. And klesha are the results of karma, all this stuff combined up. Um, so it's all the positive, all the negative, all the stuff that is happening that is accumulating as karma. Karma is actions. Karma are the actions and so on. So the results of those karmas are called the kleshas, the afflictive emotions. So we've talked about them, the five afflictive emotions, the poisons, the ignorance, the desire, the hatred, the jealousy, and the greed. So those are all part of, the fundamental building blocks of the kleshas. So then is the eighth consciousness. The eighth consciousness is the most subtle and the most interesting because it is called the storehouse consciousness, or the in Sanskrit it's called the alaya consciousness, Alaya, alaya. So, or sometimes called the all base consciousness, because everything is kind of nested in this consciousness. And this consciousness is taking all these imprints, all these things that are happening, but in particular the kleshas, the results of the kleshas, and it's imprinting in this consciousness. And we're not thinking about it, but it's imprinted like maybe a stain, or it's put into a bag. I like to use the analogy of a bag, that it's accumulating in this bag, a room, a storehouse where all these results are being stored and so on. And if we have a strong connection to these things that are in this storehouse, whether they're positive things or negative things, these are the things that we carry through from one lifetime to another. The first five consciousnesses and the sixth, the brain, all are temporary in that they die when the body dies. The I, me, mine, the klesha consciousness also dies, because that's the thinking brain, the processing brain, that dies too. But this alaya consciousness, this storehouse consciousness, is what we take with us from lifetime to lifetime. So this is where the karmic seeds are stored, and they pop up when the conditions are right, when the causes are present, and the causes and conditions. The conditions are like external to us, but the causes are internal to us. So when those two come together, then these seeds begin to pop open. So you may have a bag full of seeds, for sake of discussion. Let's say you got 100 seeds, but when certain causes come together and certain conditions come together, seed number 52 might sprout. Doesn't mean that all of them sprout, but just that one particular seed. So then when other conditions come together and other causes come together, then seed 94 might pop up. So you get the point that they're independent of each other. There can be some similarities between them. So this storehouse consciousness, so in the West, in Western philosophy, and even in the Eastern philosophy, because they talk about this a lot in Hinduism, they talk about a soul, S-O-U-L, a soul. So a way of looking at this storehouse consciousness is like the soul. And the soul in our Western minds, and even, in the Eastern as well, the Hindu minds and everything, this is what goes from one lifetime to another. And many times they'll talk about it as being stained, you know. And then, so once it's stained, how do you purify it? How do you clean it? It becomes an issue and so on. In Buddhism, we talk about that we can let go of all these things. We can let go of our attachment. We can let go of our aversion to the things that we see, to the things that we hear, to the things that we taste, all those objects of the six consciousnesses that are being processed with the brain. We can let go of those, and we can see that when we go to sleep, and we can see that when we go into our meditation practice, that we kind of transcend. We're not affected by what we see, what we hear, and so on like that. The so in the East, or rather in Buddhism, we have this idea that we can let behind, we can drop that bag. We don't have to take those seeds with us. And this becomes the ultimate cutting through, cutting off. That we're saying, I'm no longer going to play that human game anymore, because all this is within the realm of being a human being. So this is what we're working for. This is what we're trying to recognize, and to be able to have all the different aspects of being able to do that. First, we have to know what all this is. We have to know what all the afflictive emotions are, why we have them, how they came to us, and then how we cut ourselves off from them, to develop a system by which we can repeatedly purify ourselves at all different levels, and then be able to maintain that purity. So ultimately, we get to this point of saying, well, all the past stuff I've done, all the past stuff that we've done as human beings, we can just let that go. And that we can have the experience of that primordial nature, that Buddha nature, which is timeless. It's not been born, and it's not died. It is, we use an analogy that it's like a vibration that is penetrating and going through all of us, this continuum that is going through all of us, and that we harmonize with that. But that's a conceptual idea of something that can't be conceptualized. Otherwise we would be able to do that, but it's an experience. So we as human beings can experience it through the window of our dreams and through the doorway of our meditations. And we have been there many, 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 many times, not just with our waking consciousness through the dreams and through the meditation, but when we have died, because we've had many, many, many deaths, and we've had many, many, many rebirths. So we've been there, but it's very, very subtle, very, very subtle, that the human brain, the intellectual brain, doesn't recognize it. It's recognized through the heart brain, through the heart mind. So this is why the doorway of the meditation is so important, so vital in being able to understand this, to be able to experience this, and so on. When we do that, when we have those experiences, it's not in a human context. We do contextualize it when we come out of it, but we experience it as like light. Light is a very high form of which we begin to recognize this, and there's mental associations that we develop with that. But when we're in the midst of it, we don't recognize it as anything because we're not thinking of it as a human being. We're not part of it as a human being. We're beyond being a human being. So that, but when we come back out of the meditation from that experience, now we come back into our everyday mind, and now we're struggling to find the words to be able to explain it to ourselves and to be able to communicate it to other beings. So this is now for you, for all of us, is a map of what it is that we're trying to understand through the 6 human realms, through the because it's those 6 human realms that we're trying to explain this whole experience. Does anybody have any questions or comments now? Okay. All right, so I'm going to screen share. So here again is this.
Lance, could you just explain really quick the last thing you said about how it relates to the 6 human realms? Just I want to make sure I understand the last point you made.
The 6 human realms are the way in which we are going through the process of understanding all of this. So it's our field of experience as a human being. So we're seeing the results of the kleshas, the karmas, why we are in these particular realms, why these different things are happening. So it's showing attitudes, it's showing points of reference of experience and so on like that. So it becomes a living map of that which those 6 conscious or those 8 consciousnesses that I just tried to explain to you. It becomes a visualization that we can use to focus to be able to begin to categorize all these different, very subtle ideas. Does that make some sense?
I think so. So almost like the 6 realms being like categories of types of states that these at least first 7 consciousness can be in, more or less, like almost. Is that
Yes,
kind of what
yes.
you're saying? Okay.
And the 7th one in particular, because that's the klesha consciousness, that's the result of all that. So that definitely is part of the wheel of existence, and then the kleshas, or rather the alaya consciousness, that storehouse, is what we are taking with us from lifetime to lifetime. So I'll point something out. Maybe it'll help clear that up in just a moment. Let me screen share this again. Okay, so here is an image of the wheel of existence. So here inside are the 6 human realms that we've been talking about. You know, we're going to talk about the 3 lower realms today, but we've talked about the 3 higher realms. Was the Deva realm, was the Titan realm, the jealous God realm, and the human realm is what we've been talking about so far. And we've mentioned these other lower realms. Around the periphery of this is this links, these 12 links of interdependent origination, this is called. And this is the sequence that a human being goes through as they are going through this wheel of existence. So this is showing a, excuse me, a lifetime where we are born, where we grow, where we are taking in different qualities of our different aspects of our personality and so on, where we are confronted with certain knowledge situations and so on, and how we process that, and then how we let go of that, or how we take that with us into our next life. So you can look at this as a sphere, and this 12 links is like the outer shell. So for us to be able to get to the center, to be able to understand how all this dynamic is working, we have to also we have to penetrate the shell. We have to understand these 12 links of interdependent origination that takes place in the 6 human realms. So all of this is being held in place by this Mara, this demon, which is our lower self. So you could say the lower mind. When we break through, when we're able to transcend this wheel of existence, then we become, then we can become as the Buddha here, who is outside of this, is not within the wheel of existence. This Buddha is outside and is pointing the way to liberation, is pointing the way to freedom. So it's through our true nature, through our Buddha nature that we all have, that is unaffected by this, that we liberate ourselves. But it's so subtle, that is so subtle that this Mara overcomes that. It blocks it up. It suppresses that Buddha nature. So what we're doing is we're awakening to this, and so that we can become stable in the realization of this, and that everything that we do henceforth then becomes with the element of our primordial wisdom, that is that Buddha wisdom, that Buddha mind. And then our Buddha mind becomes actualized, our Buddha speech becomes actualized, which is the intellectualization of that process. And then our Buddha body becomes actualized. In other words, that we can help other beings, that within this human body itself, we can be purified to the point that other people can hear us and see us. We can communicate with them, but at a level that is that speaks of the Buddha mind. So I know that's a little subtle. Any other comments or questions? Okay, if something pops up in your mind, just write it down and we can talk about it.
Lance, I have a question.
Yes.
Can you talk more about, forgive me, they look like skulls, clown skulls at the very top of the image.
Oh, yes. Yes. These are representative of the 5 wisdoms of the Buddha. So this is showing that this is within this being here, within this demon, but within that we have this wisdom. This is the Bodhisattva wisdom. This is the Buddha wisdom that is within us, that is depicted as these skulls. So this would be the all-pervading wisdom, one in the center. This one here would be the wisdom of mirror-like wisdom, the mirror-like wisdom, that we see everything as in a mirror. We see everything as appearances. It appears this way. You know, in phenomenal nature, everything appears as this, that, or the other thing, but its true nature is illusory. It doesn't really exist. So that all-pervading wisdom that's in the center, that's showing that this primordial nature pervades everything, but we're not recognizing it yet. We're trying to get there. We see it as appearances, but we don't recognize it as the all-pervading nature. Then this one here is the wisdom of equanimity, seeing that all things are the same. So again, this is in the relative sense. All things are the same in the relative sense, because in the primordial sense, everything is beyond conception, is beyond being able to express it. But in the phenomenal nature, we look at it that it's all the same, all made up of atoms and so on. There's the physics of the matter and the physics of the energy that is in this relative world that we live. Then over here to the left of center is the wisdom of the wisdom of discriminating wisdom, the awareness of the discriminating wisdom. So what this means is this is like the awakening that there's all this stuff happening, and now we need to make choices. We make decisions about what it is that we're going to focus on. This is happening in the relative world, so we can do that. In the primordial world, it's all happening simultaneously, and there's no way for us to be able to break it apart, because as human beings we can't do that. But as primordial being, as Buddha nature, we can see these levels and we can focus on this, that, or the other thing as we need to be able to understand. And this over here, this one here is the wisdom of the all-accomplishing wisdom. That we begin to recognize that all this is all this is perfected for us. All this is here. We recognize all this, and that we can accomplish any or all of this at any given time. This is the all-accomplishing wisdom, that we are part of this that is already perfect, that is already here. So we're using some conceptual ideas to express those things that can't be expressed, but they're like pointers that are moving us in a direction, that are pointing to a direction. So, the analogy is often made, if I'm out there in the sky, or we can use the Buddha right here. Here's the Buddha who is pointing. And what's he pointing to? He's pointing to this spiritual sky here. That here's the sun, here's the moon over here, and so he's pointing to this. But are we looking at the sun? Are we looking at the moon? Are we looking at that spiritual sky, or are we looking at his fingertip? If we're looking at the fingertip, we're missing the point. The point is, the spiritual sky. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry for taking such a long time talking about these things, but it's important to be as complete as we can.
And while we're talking about the head, can I ask, so the Mara's got a third eye as well?
Yes. Yes, because this is our self, who is a deluded self, but at the same time has the awakening within them, that this Buddha nature abides in everything. There's no distinction between good or evil, but this is showing the demon is showing our dualistic nature in the human realm. But when we're able to cut through that, to be able to release this idea of, we're all one, it's all the same, this equanimity, then, then all this makes sense. And we can see, oh yes, it was there the whole time, but I was deluded. I'd covered it up with confusion. But when the confusion is taken away, now we see, oh, it's all just our pure Buddha nature. So here he's got his two eyes, his two normal eyes, that we see all things, but this is the wisdom eye. In the center is the wisdom eye. So the potential, so I guess a way of expressing this is that the potential is within this demon. The potential for seeing the wisdom of our primordial consciousness, of our Buddha mind is there.
Got it. Thanks for explaining.
I'm sorry, did somebody say something?
Oh, I was just saying thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay. All right, so now, let me change the picture here because this one, some of these pictures are good for certain, let's see this one, yeah. Okay. Can you see this wheel that's up here now? Can somebody turn their microphone on and say, tell me, can you see this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. All right, very good. All right, so we talked about the six realms and the three higher realms: the God realm, or the David realm, the demigod realm, and the human realm. So now we're going to talk about the three lower realms. So the three lower realms are the animal realm, the hungry ghost realm, and the hell realms. So in the animal realm are, as we would expect, are all these animals, and we are, we come from this realm. This is part of, our physicality, what we come from. So there's a lot of familiarity that we have with this realm. And it's very easy for us, and we very often have probably allowed ourselves to kind of regress into this animal realm over and over again, where all we're thinking about is our hunger. When we get hungry, there's very little that we can concentrate on. We just want to eat. All we can think about is eating. And if we've missed a meal, or we're fasting or something like that intentionally, it's our hunger that really comes to our mind, and so that's very animalistic, to want to eat. Same thing with sex. The sexual drive that we have, the procreation drive, is a primal drive in our who we are, in our physicality, and it overtakes our intellectualism. So when we are feeling deprived and so on, then that kind of takes control. When we are teenagers in particular, and our hormones start developing, start raging in our body, and how they overtake our mind, we all go through that period of our teenage years and our early 20s or mid 20s, whatever, and some of us carry it on into our 70s and 80s, because it's so supported. The food thing, the sexual thing is in our faces all the time now, with advertisements, with televisions, with magazines, with people that you meet on the street. We're bombarded with this all the time. And it continues our connection with this animalistic behavior that we can generate, rather than recognizing, well, I can control my hunger, and that I can control my sexuality, and that as I get older, the easier both of those things become. And that's difficult for a lot of people, because they associate their hunger, and in particular their sexuality, with their virility, with their being a strong human being, what their great, abilities to be able to perform in those ways is a sign of how great they are. The ego really attaches to that. So it's very easy for us to fall back into that and have that controlling us. These animals are in a constant state of a conflict, but not in the way that humans are in conflict, that we looked about with the demigods when they were fighting wars and trying to conquer each other. These guys are simply trying to eat. And so there's this wheel of predator and prey that is to satisfy their necessary needs to eat and so on. So this is depicted here by the different animals, the stronger animals, the weaker animals. There's animals that are in the water here. There's animals that are in the trees, in the sky, and so on. So we're seeing all these different animals, and they are caught in this ignorance of not knowing who they are. They're not able to control their environment to any great degree. They don't realize, what the rain is. They don't realize what the snow is. They can do things to avoid it, but they're not able to do the things that a human being can do. The human being has moved beyond this and is able to control its environment where these animals cannot do that. So they're enslaved. Human beings can enslave these animals very much for their own uses, to till the land, to be able to grow crops and so on, to harness them, to carry wagons and do all the beast of burden things that humans require to be able to improve their lot in life. So this is the human realm, or excuse me, this is the animal realm, and the feature that is the least common denominator of these animals is their ignorance, that they are ignorant of who they are, where they are, what they can change, what they can't change, etc., like that. They're living for the moment, and in some ways, as being a human being, we could say, wow, that would be a blessing. We're all trying to live in the moment, but we get all scattered around thinking about the past and the future, as well as all the possibilities of the moment. But these animals are truly living in the moment. And so they are unaware, and because of that, they're not progressing. They're not moving out of this realm. However, there is a Buddha that is in this realm, as there's a Buddha in all these different realms that we've talked about. And this Buddha is carrying a book. And this book is the book of knowledge, the book of education. So it's through the education of the Buddha, of this book, of this wisdom, that is able to communicate to these animals so that they, for a moment, at the very least, can have this peace of realizing that there is something that they can aspire to, that there's something that is beyond their capability, and so they recognize that, and they can take the opportunity to move themselves forward. So we might be able to see that in a figurative way with our domestic pets that we have at home, or the cats and dogs and birds and whatever other animals you might have around and so on, that we can by regulating their lives, by they hear the rustle of the food box or the can opener going, and right away they know they're going to get fed or something, and they hear the jingle jangle of their chain, of their leash, and they know they're going to be able to go outside and go relieve themselves or take a walk. So there's things that we can do to train these animals, and they really seem to respond to it. And we can see that there is this level of emotion that these animals have for us as their caretakers, the human beings that are taking care of them, and for each other. Because if you've seen, your domesticated animals that have their litters and so on, and how they instinctively take care of their young. And we can see this in the wild if we go to zoos or whatever, and we can see that there's more organization, societal organization with many of these animals. How they stay together, they support each other as they grow to be adults and so on, and they help raise the young animals. We've seen this on these wildlife shows or in the zoos and so on, where the animals work together to kind of help each other. but this is a very limited awareness of what they don't actually know what they're doing as we do as human beings, but instinctively they have this ability. So this Buddha is giving the peace to those animals so that they can aspire to become a higher level being, that they're not caught in their in these very limited abilities that they have. Is this making any sense? Does anybody have any comment about the animal realm?
The book that he holds looks like a tuning fork, and that he's just sending a vibration into the dimension.
Well, that book is actually called a Pecha text, Pecha, and it's a flat book, and it's pages that are all just layered on top of each other with no binding. And there is there's like a wooden board that is the top and the bottom. So that is the typical Tibetan book. So that's what that refers to. Your point about the tuning fork is interesting, but nevertheless, that's what it is a Tibetan text. Okay. So if there's no question, so we can see how we as human beings, and as we progress through our lives, can fall backwards. We can fall into the lower realm through our and start behaving like an animal. Because of our instincts to eat, is it because of our instincts for sex, is it instincts to enslave other beings, to exert our power from one being onto another, things like that. So we can see where we have come out of the animal realm, but it's very easy for us to kind of slip back behaviorally to in our conduct to behave like animals. So when we talk about falling into the three lower realms, this is one of those realms that we are referring to. Okay. So now we come over to this realm here. This realm is the hungry ghost realm. I'm going to change pictures. I want to see if there's another picture that is this is the same one. No, I think that first one is the better one. Okay. Yeah, so the more I blow it up, the more you can see the digitization of it. But nevertheless, so this is the hungry ghost realm. In Sanskrit, it's called the Preta realm, Preta, Preta realm. And the Preta realm, these are beings that are here because of their greed. These are beings that have very big round bodies. Maybe you can see some illustrations show it to be more pronounced than others. But here they have round bodies. Here the important feature is that they have very long, thin necks and very small mouths. And many of these illustrations, you'll see them as these big round bodies with very short arms and very short legs. So what this represents is that they're never satisfied. They can never eat enough, or they can never drink enough to satisfy their hunger or thirst. So this hunger or thirst can be for food and for liquids, but it also can be for knowledge. It can be for power. It can be for possessions. It can be for anything that we want to have. And then when we get it, we don't want to let go of it. And we want more of it. We're greedy. We're holding on to it. So we become miserable, miserly beings. So those human beings who are living in the human realm, remember this is all part of the psychophysical drama of being a human being. So those human beings who are very miserly, they fall into this realm. They're characterized by this particular realm of these beings like this. So so here there's, there's showing there's some heat here, there's cold here, there's other beings who are this one, some of this is just artistic interpretation. So you won't see all these images in all these same wheels of existence. It depends on the image here, depends on the artist. So you can see that they're showing a house, and here is a large hungry ghost, and these other beings are supplicating this. So we can fall into these patterns, these groups of people where we're worshiping this. We're thinking, oh, this is the best way to live. This is the way that we do live. This is the way we want to live, is to be like that. And our heroes are these greedy ones, and so on. So there's a lot of that, and so we have to recognize the way in which these realms permeate our lives, how we characterize, how we act out, how we behave in these different realms, and so on. And by recognizing these things, if we have this insatiability for whatever it is, we can recognize, we can see that and say, oh wow, I'm behaving like a hungry ghost. And I know people like that. There are people who always want teachings, the Dharma teachings. And you give them a Dharma teaching, and then 2 weeks later they're back and they're asking for another Dharma teaching, or they want the same one over and over again. And at what point do they become satisfied? And then, so you point out to them and say, you're behaving like a hungry ghost. At what point do you become satisfied? All you need is one teaching, just the realization that we have this true nature. Now, I understand that there's much more to it than that, and you want to understand, but when you start getting that idea, why are you still accumulating all these teachings rather than practicing? Because that's where this here is accumulating all the teachings, but not doing the practices. So if we begin to practice, then we become satisfied. If we only have one practice, that's all we need, because that one practice can satisfy us for all these different Dharma teachings that we receive. So there's different practices that we can use that work on different aspects. And I appreciate that. And we need that at certain times, but we can also get ourselves lost in that. So now here are showing some hungry ghost beings. If you can see them here, they seem to be, supplicating this Buddha who is here, who this Buddha is holding in his right hand. He's holding a flask, and the flask is a flask of like water, of, a vase of water. In the other hand, he's holding like a box, and the box is a box of food. So what this represents is the Buddha who is bringing to these Preta beings, these hungry ghost beings, something to drink and something to eat that can satisfy them, at least for a moment, so they can realize the causes that have brought them into this particular realm. What has caused them to be a hungry ghost? That they have this moment of peace to be able to recognize that. Then from that moment of peace, then they can develop their aspirations, and so when they can develop their practices, they can take the knowledge that they have and work with that and become and elevate themselves to the higher realms. So this is the Buddha who is providing them those moments of peace to be able to do that. Any comments or questions about the hungry ghost realm, the Preta realm?
It seems that our whole culture is full of hungry ghosts, in my opinion.
Yes. And that's absolutely right. And that's what I have thought several times. I've come to that conclusion. I agree with you. And that we're being led around by these titans, by these demigods.
Does that mean we're in a state of purgatory and not real living?
Well, purgatory is a word that's used in other traditions. So I wouldn't conflate the two. We'll see, and when we get into the hell realm, they talk about the neighboring hells, and that would be more like the purgatories, if I would. But I don't think that this is the way that I understand purgatory is explained. This is not a purgatory that way. I don't look at it that way. So, but don't take my word for it. You should keep that in your mind, and as you study these and meditate on these, uh, reconcile that for yourself. You know, examine this for yourself and say, well, okay, what is purgatory? What do I know that to be? And what do I know these other realms to be? You know, are they lining up with each other? You know, or is there a little bit of, they're not quite the same thing. So that's a very good point of investigation.
And it very much echoes like the experience of addiction as well.
How do you mean?
Uh, in the sense of where it's insatiable and you can't get enough, and then you're stuck in this process over and over, especially as it progresses and there's like physical dependency. It echoes that a lot. I know there's a famous psychiatrist who does a lot of stuff with addiction. I think his name's Gabor Mate, and I think he named his book "The Realm of the Hungry Ghost" or something. He's not like Buddhist or anything, but referring to these things. And yeah, and I've had some issues with addiction, and also work with people with addiction. Well, and it's there's something some kind of similarity, maybe just as metaphor or something. But
No, I agree with you. I think so, and I think this does show addiction because it can be addiction to the knowledge. It can be addiction to a lot of different things, and people that are insatiable. Yes, so they're addicted to whatever this particular is pointing to. Yes. So we're all addicted. I mean, look at we're all addicted to this body. We're all addicted to this life. You know, that's why we keep having birth after birth after birth after birth, life after life after life, etc., because we're addicted to this. And we rationalize the suffering that we go through with, the having the identity of doing this. We think that that this is a great thing to do, that we rationalize our suffering.
Lance, I had a quick question about the long necks. I don't. Is it because they're always looking for things, or?
No, it's because it's just their physicality here, but it's just representative that they can't eat enough or swallow enough to satisfy their big bellies.
Gotcha.
So it's just a symbolic way of looking at this. And remember that these paintings were books that the teachers would take with them to the illiterate people. And so they could be pointing to these different sections and talking about them, and it would make, connection points with the people's minds so they can understand these things, because they couldn't read these things, but they could recognize the illustrations.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. So then we'll go to the next realm, which is we can talk a lot about this, and this is representative of the hell realms, and the hell realms are much more complex, and the hell realms are the result of hatred. that human beings who have done terrible things, where they've killed beings, they've made other beings suffer in very profound ways, sexual deviation and stealing, different things. Maybe not stealing. Stealing would be in the hungry ghost realm, but being the kind of kleshas, the kind of deeds that really took someone's life or maimed them, something like that. Went into a Buddhist center or any kind of a religious center and disturbed the sanctity of it, or disturbed the icons that were in that, whether it was a church or a synagogue or a temple, whatever, who did something, who stood in the way of other beings' spiritual progress. These beings, this kind of hatred would manifest as a rebirth into these hell realms. And these hell realms are separated by 8 hot realms and 8 cold realms. So these 8 hot realms are, these beings are suffering from being, cooked in an oil, being burned to death, drinking molten metal, falling on a flaming sword, all these different things that, again, graphically are displaying to these um, um, uh, uh, these people who can't read or write, to help them to understand, the morality of what being a human being needs to be, and what will result if they're not behaving morally. These cold hells are like beings who are caught in like glacier fields, who are being frozen to death, and their bodies blister and break apart. That they're being ground together by 2 glaciers coming together. They're being crushed, and then like that. So in all these realms, what happens is they are constantly going through a death, a very terrible death, that is a harmonic that is commensurate with the suffering that they caused as a human being, and then they're revived. So only to die another death. So constantly are they in the hot hells, and constantly dying because of the hot heat of the flames, and then they're revived, and then the flames come again. Or in their cold realms, and they die because of being ground together by the glaciers, and then they're resurrected again, and then they die immediately because of the same things over and over and over again. And maybe you have experienced this either yourself, or people who are like this, who are in this hell realm, who they're causing their own suffering, and they keep making the same decisions over and over again. And the decisions are based on some kind of hatred or some kind of anger, some kind of aggression that they keep doing. And these things kept coming back to them. They can't break out of this because they're just so blinded by their passionate hatred. So, so what we're trying to recognize is that we're causing this for ourselves. That this really typifies the idea of that you're carrying this demon with you. And we see people who are have these strong addictions, as Matt was just pointing out, that we have these strong addictions, and we often talk to them that it's the demon within themselves that is causing this. But that could be said for all these different realms, but in particular here in the hell realms, we really can see how that manifests and how that demon comes to be, and how they keep doing the same thing. And criminals who do very hateful things and so on, and they're trying to lash out, to satisfy their anger, but it never satisfies them. It just justifies that for them, and it gives them permission to do even more. So So here we have an illustration of that dynamic. So here in there's what we call neighboring hells here, which are beings who are caught in these more temporary places like the purgatory, where they haven't done quite the terrible thing that the beings that are in the hot hells or the cold hells have done, but they're in these neighboring hells where they have been plagued by harmful thought, where their thought maybe hasn't come to a complete fruition, but meanwhile they're feeling very, very guilty, and they are caught in these neighboring hells and these other places like that to be able to recognize and come out of this realm. So here is a depiction of this like this hell master, this major demon, and you see that he is characterized. He's got the five skulls here and so on. So this is the inner demon that has the ability to be able to recognize its own true nature, but yet is dominating all these other beings who are falling to their lower drives, to their lower proclivities in life to do harm for other beings. And so here are his minions who are following the instructions of this Lord of Death, who is constantly, driving these beings into this death rebirth cycle in this terrible way. As in all the other realms, there is a Buddha. And this Buddha here has in his one hand, in his right hand, he's holding a fire, a flame. And in the other hand, he's holding a bowl full of icy cold water. And so what he's able to do, this Buddha is able to do, is to bring a peace, a temporary peace, to the hell beings who are in the hot hells through the icy water, and to the beings who are in the cold hells, the flame, in order to be able to help these beings realize what it is that they have caused themselves, and so that they can liberate themselves from this from their suffering. Any thoughts or questions?
Hey Lance, I really liked you said the phrase people who have passionate anger or passionate hatred. That's an interesting phrase. Like that resonated so much with me because I'm with my parents right now who are fasting for Ramadan for the holy month. Yet it was ironic in talking with them how much they don't recognize their own hatred in their speech towards other individuals who don't practice Islam. Like in talking with last night, there's so much anger even while during their holy month, and I had to listening to them. It was interesting. So listening to you talk, I'm thinking of people in my life that I love, where they may psychologically be as well in their journey.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I'm glad that that helps. And that's what this is designed to do, to be able to point out to people, that being a human being, is a complex thing. And we're prey to these 6 realms that are happening concurrently, within our life. Sometimes it's 1% this and 5% that and 60% this and 60% something else and so on. It's changing all the time. But when we look at something like this and recognize, oh, this is me as a hell being, this is me as a hungry ghost, this is me as an animal, this is me as a god, and so on like that, and to be able to recognize that, take responsibility for it, and be able to ultimately liberate ourselves from these things, this psychophysical drama that we are going through.
So again, I know I keep coming back to a very similar idea, but So these are meant to be metaphoric.
Yes.
That's the point to something else. Because this is one area I really got hung up on a while ago in a different context, but with practicing Lamrim, it was a different Lamrim, but obviously they're very similar. Where you're going the thing of you're imagining yourself in the hot hell, and these things are happening, and there's the stakes going through you. There's all these things. I think the purpose is to elicit this kind of fear that's to move towards more of a state of renunciation. I think is the point of it, and it didn't have that effect for me. It brought on like a great sense of doubt for me that I kind of abandoned practicing in that way with the Lamrim before. So it's just important for me to like understand how to look at this specifically. But I mean, it works for me how with what you're saying resonates with me. But
Was the obscuration, was the confusion that you were having, was it being presented that these were real physical places?
Yes, I mean maybe that's overstating. It was like what I mean by real physical places, but something like that. At least that's how I was interpreting how it was being taught to me. So I mean, I don't. But yes, that there was something more literal about it. Of like, okay, you can get reborn, and you're in this thing, and you're dying, and for some reason there's hot and cold versions, and it's like these horrible things, and it seemed very. I don't know. It arose a great sense of like doubt, and this is like one of the exact areas I got caught up in, where I stopped practicing Lamrim many years ago in a different tradition, obviously within the Tibetan tradition. But that's why I just want to like really make sure I don't want to monopolize everyone's time here. But
No, that's fine. And it's a good question because that's what the obstacle is in most people's minds, that these are literal places because we're taught, from the very beginning, oh, you're going to go to hell, and hell is down below the earth, and you want to go to heaven, which is above the earth, and all this kind of stuff. And so, we're taught this as children, and that stays with us, and because it feeds this kind of powerful mysticism that we have, about what life is and what happens when we die and so on like that. But this is what we're recognizing here is this is the living human being who is going through the psychophysical drama of being a human being. What's below is we know that's not true. You know, could we say that there's other dimensions, that these things speak of other dimensions? Well, there's a possibility there. There is, and do you want to investigate that? But so in other words, is there a dimension? Let's say the 11th dimension is the hell dimension. And the 12th dimension is, let's say, that's the hungry ghost dimension or something like that. You can investigate that. You can look at all these things, put all this stuff together, use logic, and then be able to go through a process of just resting the mind, and then be able to experience that which is beyond our human consciousness. Can we really do that? So some of us would say, yes, you can do that. The skeptics might say, oh, no, you can't do that. But have they tried to do that and then failed, or haven't even made the attempt, but yet they're judging whether or not they can do that? So the invitation is there to do that. And you find that invitation, coming from some of the highest spirituality traditions and beings, to be able to invite people to do that. So in other words, there should be a high level of confidence, permission to be able to do that and not cause harm to yourself, but to cause awakening for yourself. Gary, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I think that most of us have, if not all of us, have lived in a world which is defined in a context of reward and punishment, or getting and not getting. And that drives our interpretation of our relationships, what we expect to get out of them, and how we expect our lives to go, and instead of just living within a context of love. And that is part of what I believe that I have gotten out of the studies that we have had here. That certainly we want results in our relationships, but that is just the way that that I see it. I think that if we devote our energies more to giving and to and caring about people, that everything else will take care of itself. But very few people do that. And as I look at the world today, it is becoming it is driving much more in the other direction. It's agenda driven, and the agendas are harsh. There have to be losers and winners. And I think that that is I think that that is centered for the suffering that we're seeing. Just an opinion.
Well, to put that in context, I understand what you're saying, I think, and to put it in context, have there been periods where what we are experiencing right now, I suppose what you're talking about is this geopolitical thing that we're going through right now, which has been what, the past 20, 30 years, it's been concentrated, these past number of years or whatever. But have there been periods like this before?
Sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. When I was young, in the 70s and in the Woodstock early Vietnam years, the country was in torment. In the Watergate years, the country was in torment. There was possibly it's always been that way. You can point to whatever issue might have existed at the time. But it's the way that human nature was expressing itself and applying itself to. There always had to be the other that was bad. That seems to be the way that the context in which not just our society but the world writ large it behaves. That's how we understand the world.
All right, so can you categorize it that we have this dualistic nature?
Absolutely.
Okay, so in this dualism, that there are high points and there are low points, right? And sometimes, and they're happening simultaneously, or sometimes there may be a little bit of a shift, if you look at an undulating, they call it a sine wave, that it's going up and down, and so sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down. And the point is that what do we want to focus on? Do we want to focus on the high, or do we want to focus on the low? And that's a choice. And we've always had that choice, so that's part of the human condition. So for us, we're trying to focus on the high. And by recognizing the low, we're not dismissing the low, but we're trying to say, well, this is a choice that I have as to what I want to focus on, where I want to be. This is the wisdom. This is the all-accomplishing wisdom. This is the wisdom of discriminating awareness. Those were the 5 wisdoms that were in there were the skulls of the demon that we talked about. How do we look at this? We need to look at all of this as pure wisdom, which has no designation between being positive or negative. It's just states of relativity, of fact of where we are. And we as individuals need to be able to select which one that we are going to abide in. Are we going to abide in the lower things, or are we going to abide in the higher things, or even is it going to be in the middle? So I think that's so for me, that's always comes back to be the lesson.
Lance, can I just say that that was really enlightening for me, what Gary just said about reward and punishment. And it occurs to me, what's the natural outgrowth from this focus so much on reward and punishment? It's fear, isn't it? I mean, for me, it is. It's, thinking about work on Monday morning, and if this project doesn't get on track, I'll be punished. And if it does, I'll get rewarded, rather than I just want to do a good job because I like my coworkers, I want to help them out.
Right.
It's a different emphasis.
And those are the 8 worldly concerns.
Yeah.
Remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
So we can see that all these different concept ways of looking at things all intersect with each other, and all these different lists and so on, they all help to be able to fine tune our understanding of the human condition. And to bring forth, how do we abide in the human condition? How do we endure this? Do we endure this by carrying this heavy bag around with us, or can we put the bag down and we can just kind of just float through it and not allow to quell the passion, to overcome the passion, to find the peace? So that's what, for us, the spirituality is that peace. Although we have to endure these things, we find ways to do it peaceably. So that we're going to take a break, but when we come back from the break, then we're going to go back into our meditation talk. And that's on the other side of this, is how do we get to that peace? How do we get to that quiet? What's the method to get to that? So that's the other side of our conversation today.
And before the break, can you mention the different colors in the 6 realms of the Buddha?
Of the different Buddhas?
Yeah, in each realm they're a different color, right?
Well, let me see here. Sorry, just a second. Just a moment.
No worries.
Oh my goodness.
I gotta get rid of this. Come on, go away. I think I got too many things open. Can you see this? Can you see this Buddha? All right.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks.
All right. So this is Buddha Shakyamuni, and he is the Buddha of the human realm, and he is golden yellow. Okay. He's holding the mendicant's the mendicant's bowl, and he's got this staff that signals that he is present and not to fear him. This is the Buddha of the hell realm, and here he's dark blue, very blue-black, we say, and he's holding the fire in his right hand and the fire in his left hand. And he is Buddha Dharma Raja, is his name, Dharma Raja. Wait a minute. One second. I want to make sure I get all these names right. Here it is. Okay. So his name is, I said Dharma Raja. So the next is, this is the Buddha of the God realm. And he's got a white body, and he's playing a veena. Is a four-stringed instrument, like a violin or a guitar or something like that. And he is the Buddha of the God realm, and his name is Indrasaka. Indrasaka. And then this is a lighter blue, a medium blue color Buddha, and this is the Buddha of the animal realm, and he's holding the book. Remember, he was holding the book, and somebody pointed out, yes, you're right about that this particular book is in the shape of like a hook. So this is the Buddha who is controlling the animals through the hook of knowledge. So this particular image is pointing that out. Yes. So somebody had mentioned that before. So this is the book of knowledge, and his name is Sthura Simha. If you're writing down the name, it is STHIRASIMHA. Sthura Simha is his name, and he's a medium blue. And then I gotta move this out of the way. And then this is the Buddha who is in the hungry ghost realm, and he's like a saffron color, like a red orange color. And in this image, you see him. He's got the flask. This image doesn't have the box. It would have a box of food, and the flask would be the box. Would be the vase of water. But this is to help the beings that are in the hungry ghost realm. And his name is Zvala Mukha. Zvala Mukha. So that's spelled JVALA. Mukha. Zvala Mukha. That J is pronounced as a Zvala. Zvala Mukha. So he's in the hungry ghost realm. And then and the last one is this blue, is usually depicted as a blue-green. And this is the Buddha who is in the demigod realm. And here he's got the shield in his left hand to protect from the slings and arrows from the other conflict, demigods who are trying, not demigods, excuse me, but the jealous gods who are waging war against each other so that they can have power. So the shield protects them. And then this flaming sword here is the flaming sword of wisdom that is cutting through their ignorance, is cutting through their confusion in the demigod realm or the Titan realm. And his name is Vemasitra, Vemacitra, Vemasitra. So when we get to talk about the Bardo Total, we will go into more detail about these different realms and talking about these Buddhas and so on. And also everything that we've been talking about with the 6 realms is in the Jewel Ornamental Liberation, which is a Lam Rim text, and Lam Rim means stages of stages of the path. So it's going through this. So there's much more elaboration in the Jewel Ornamental Liberation about each one of these realms. So basically, what I gave was a outer description, a little bit of inner meaning, but in the Jewel Ornamental Liberation, it spends more time on the inner meaning. Okay, so I hope that those illustrations help Emanuela.
Yeah, it helped a lot. Thanks for having them zoomed in well. Yeah, thanks for all the info. Thanks.
Okay, good. All right, so we'll take a break here, and what time is it? So it's 10:40. We'll come back at 11 o'clock in 20 minutes. Okay, 11 o'clock my time. So it'll be at the top of the hour for wherever you happen to be. So we'll see you in 20 minutes. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to get back to talking about the stages of meditation. If anybody has any questions about what we just talked about, please write them down and we can talk about them after we finish the meditation part. So I sent you an email, or not an email, but a WhatsApp attachment for the Stages of Meditation Guide Part 1. So I know I just sent it this morning. If you have an opportunity to print it sometime, that would be good. I will screen share it as we follow along. So this is going to be a practice. We're going to go through all the different stages that we've already been through without interruption. But when we get to the part about bodhicitta, we haven't had too much of a conversation about bodhicitta. So we're going to, at that point, I'm going to give a little bit of a talk on that. And then we will continue our meditation through the end. Okay, so if you want to take notes, that's great. But in the meantime, if you can sit in the Vajra posture, in the proper posture of Buddha Varanchana, we say, where our back is straight. Our legs are, if we're sitting on a cushion on the floor, our legs are crossed. If you're sitting in a chair, your feet can be flat on the floor, your knees together, but in a comfortable position. If you rather cross your ankles while you're sitting in a chair, that's perfectly fine. The most important part is to keep your back straight. And then your hands, your left hand is up, your right hand is lying in your left, and your thumbs are touching 4 inches below your navel. Then you pull your shoulders back, and as you pull your shoulders back, it automatically pulls your hands right into your navel, right into that, your abdomen region. So you can maintain a good, comfortable, stable position with this. And then your head is downward just a little bit, your chin tucked down just a little bit, not up like this, but down like this. And so your face is in the downward position, your neck is just a little bit forward. So we look like a gallant horse, a steed, as they say, a mare or a stallion. And then our eyes can be open or closed. They're open. They're looking down in the direction of your nose, 4 or 5 feet out in front of you, not looking at anything in particular, just a gaze, not a stare. You're not looking at anything in particular. Maybe it's something on the floor, the pattern of your rug or something like that. But if you close your eyes in the beginning, I think it's better. That way you have less distractions, less to have to think about. Just want to keep your mind centered and quiet. And then your mouth can be slightly open, and you're breathing in through both nostrils, bringing the breath all the way down 4 inches below your navel. And then you hold the breath, and then when you exhale through the nostrils again, forcing all that stale, negative, dark air out, and you hold that empty breath. If you prefer to breathe through your mouth, you can. Keep your tongue on the top of the roof of your mouth, on the roof of your mouth behind your front teeth. And this will keep your mouth moist if you're breathing through your mouth. So this is called the 7-point posture of Varanchana. So now I'm going to screen share. And so we will just do our short refuge prayer and the four immeasurables. So we recite this out loud together. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye chodang soki chonam Shangju Badu Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Jinso Ki Pe Sonam Ki Drola Penshir Sangye Jupasho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pesem centam she dewadang dewe gurdang dembarjurchi. Dugnal dang dunal gigu dang drawajurchi. Dugnal me pe dewa dang midra wajurchi. May ring jack dang ni dang drawe tang namla ne pa jurchi. Now we go to, one moment. Now we go to the stages of the meditation guide. The four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. Well, that's wrong. Sorry. Sorry. Hold on. Okay, stages of meditation guide, part 1. The four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. Precious human life. Oh, This kind of leisure and endowment is supremely difficult to obtain. When one obtains a body, which is easily lost, do not waste it meaninglessly, but rather use it to attain ultimate liberation, joyous result. Contemplate on the meaning of precious human life. Impermanence. The nature of all phenomena is impermanence. Death is a certainty to all who are born. Death can descend any time like a drop of morning dew on a blade of grass. Quick, it is time to make effort for the essence of the Dharma. Contemplate on impermanence. Next. The suffering of samsara. In the 3 lower realms, and even in the 3 higher ones, there is not an instant of absolute happiness. I will avoid the root cause of my samsaric existence and practice the excellent path of peace to enlightenment. Contemplate the meaning of the suffering of samsara. Karma, cause and result. The fruits of one's positive karma is happiness. Suffering is the fruit of negative karma. The inexorable karmic causation is the mode of abiding in all dharmas. Henceforth, practice the dharma by distinguishing between what should be practiced and what should be given up. Contemplate the meaning of karma, cause, and result. Loving kindness, the first method to attain enlightenment. All sentient beings, limitless as the infinite nature of space, have been our mothers from beginningless time until this lifetime. Therefore, for these kind mothers to sustain happiness, it is necessary for me to relinquish hatred and develop loving kindness. The four kindnesses the mother has shown. She gave birth to our body. She would give up her life for one's self. She taught one what to take up and what to abandon. She performed austerities for one's benefit. Contemplate the meaning of the four kindnesses of the mother. Compassion, the second method to attain enlightenment. Even though these mothers desire happiness, by the force of their non-virtuous action, they are tortured in the three lower realms. Because of their unbearable suffering, I develop unbearable compassion. Visualize one's own mother's suffering in each of the six realms. Being tortured by the demons in the hell realms, experiencing hunger and thirst in the Preta, hungry ghost realm. Being beaten and eaten as an animal. Suffering sickness and old age as a human. Heedless pleasure and conflict in the demigod realm. Desperate falling from pride in the God realm. Visualize one's own mother suffering in each of the 6 realms. Empathetic joy, the 3rd method to attain enlightenment. May my mothers have happiness and be free from suffering. May they sustain the happiness which is free from suffering. Contemplate empathetic joy. Equanimity, the fourth method to attain enlightenment. May my mind abide in equanimity towards these mother beings. Contemplate equanimity. Now we recite the four immeasurable qualities of bodhicitta. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. So now we discuss bodhicitta, the fifth method to attain enlightenment. We recite together. Now I lack the ability to bring happiness to these migrators. Therefore, I engage my mind diligently to attain the supreme ultimate state and bring these mother beings to complete happiness. Bodhicitta, the unity of emptiness and compassion. I make effort to practice the ultimate Dharma beyond conceptual thoughts. Bajra Samaza, the indestructible vow that breaks through. So all this is bodhicitta, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. This is how we attain Buddhahood, and this is the mind, the body, speech, and mind of Buddhahood. We practice all the different facets of bodhicitta. And if we do this, our confused projections all arise as wisdom. I'm going to stop the screen share now. I think I'm going to stop it now. Okay, so bodhicitta is the activities, the mode of the activities that we take as an enlightened being. So I've used this example many times. Our true nature is like this diamond that is in our heart center. And this diamond is indestructible. It's clear. And we can see all the different facets of the diamond. The facets of the diamond are the activities of the bodhicitta. The bodhicitta is what the diamond is made of: loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So all the enlightened ones, they are doing everything with their bodhicitta. So these different facets are the names of all the different activities, the names of all the different deities. So we start getting into, well, what are the deities? What do the deities do? They train us as to how to behave, how to have conduct, how to think, etc., with bodhicitta. So they become our examples. They become our teachers. So as we do this, we're cutting through our dualistic nature. We're cutting through all our confusion. And then that confusion, that dualistic nature, we are projecting as being what is real. That's what we think is real. But it's all just illusory. It's just what we conceive it to be with our intellectual minds. The bodhicitta is from our heart mind, and that is undisturbed. That is perfect. That is permanent. So we need to be able to recognize those heart thoughts and be able to control the brain thoughts. So bodhicitta is the means by which we are articulating this process, how we are doing this. And the deities, the different deities like the different Buddhas, the different Bodhisattvas, are teaching us how to do that through their examples. So there's two different categories of bodhicitta. There's the relative and there's the ultimate. So this is part of the dualistic nature of bodhicitta. And phenomenal nature is this dualism that we abide in, that we live in. But we are striving to recognize and to become stable in the primordial nature, in that ultimate Buddha nature. So in this relative, there is an aspiring bodhicitta, which is the intention. We want to have bodhicitta. We want to behave with bodhicitta. We want to engage with loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So we're using the example of our mothers to help us to do that. Because we not only want to do it with our mothers, but we're seeing all beings as being our mother. So this technique helps us to develop this mindfulness that we are all the same. And just as we would do this for our mother, we would do this for all beings, regardless of who they are or where they are. So we say that this is our commitment that we take to the result. The result is enlightenment. The result is peace. So through this intention, through this aspirational bodhicitta, We're setting ourselves on this path to be able to accomplish this. Part of this to keep ourselves pure, because we have a tendency to want to do this selfishly for ourselves. But this aspiring bodhicitta has the element of doing this for other beings, not just for ourselves. That it's through doing this for other beings that we actually accomplish this for ourselves. If we try and do this selfishly and ignore the suffering of other beings, the confusion of other beings, then we're only partially attaining some level of bodhicitta, but not the complete bodhicitta. So the element of doing this for the benefit of others, so that they can attain Buddhahood, is a huge part of this. Being on the path, we talk about being a bodhisattva. Bodhi means enlightenment, and sat is a being, sattva is a holy being. So it's the holy, enlightened being. And it's a human being. It's a being who is on the path to become Buddha. And we're doing this through the means of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the holy enlightened mind. So trying to help put this into a perspective here. And so as a human being, we take the position that I cannot take enlightenment until all beings can take enlightenment, because I am so interconnected with other beings that if they are suffering, it causes my suffering. So if I can help other beings to relieve their suffering, that relieves my suffering of that connection with them. Then we can all be liberated together. So this is an important notion. The Buddhas have attained liberation. And for the bodhisattvas to do that, they have to be able to say that I have reached a level of perfection where just my mind, just the radiation, the radiating mind, the luminosity that I bring, the purity that I bring will be for the benefit of all sentient beings. But for those of us who haven't reached that level and are on the bodhisattva path, then we are engaged in helping other beings to do that actively. We're not just sitting by what appears to be passively. We are engaged in the practices of developing the bodhicitta. So this is a commitment to the result, and the result is enlightenment for ourselves and for all other beings. The engaging bodhicitta is the actual application, how that we're doing that, the application of the bodhisattva precepts, everything to which we apply ourselves in the accomplishment of enlightenment. It's setting out on our journey. It's doing it. It's a commitment to the cause itself, to the cause of enlightenment. It's the commitment to the cause. Before was the commitment to the result. This is the commitment to the cause. What causes this liberation? What causes this bodhicitta? This is the engaging bodhicitta. Just thinking it, just reading about it, doesn't do it. Just even meditating on it doesn't do it. What does it is the engagement and the actual practices of engaging this with other beings. And whatever work that we do and so on, and then we use the Eightfold Path, the Eightfold Path that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, in order to kind of focus us on what the tracks are to this. So are we doing this? We're doing it in our work. We're doing it in our practice. We're doing it in our families. We're doing it in our development and so on. all these different facets all coming together. So the engagement is the commitment to the cause, and the aspiration is the commitment to the result. So both are part of the relative bodhicitta, the relative bodhicitta. This is the phenomenal world in which we are operating as a human being. Arising out of this, the bodhicitta has three phases: the preliminary, the main, and the concluding phases. So the first, the preliminary phase, is the ritual practice, is the ceremony in which we engage in. It's a commitment that we are engaging in to do these different things. So this is characterized, this is put together as the 7-limb prayer. So in your Buddhism 101 book, and on page, 7, I think, is the 7-limb prayer. Excuse me, it's page 10, 11, 12 is the 7-limb prayer. So this is like the 7 limbs of a tree, and the tree is the bodhicitta. And so we're setting about to create this for ourselves, or to stabilize this for ourselves, so that we become that tree, the 7 limbs of that tree, which is the form and activity of doing bodhicitta. So that's the preliminary phase. And then with that, we're thinking about loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, etc. The second part of this bodhicitta is the giving rise to bodhicitta, that we're giving rise to this through the vow that we take to continue to do this. So the vow is we repeat almost every day, or at least we should. If we go to our 101 book again, and this time we go to page 4, is taking the bodhisattva vow, or cultivating the bodhisattva mind. It's titled differently, but it means the same. The translation is the same. And this is where we are taking a commitment to be a bodhisattva. So if you've got your book, if you can open up to that page 4, and we'll read the English. It says, until I attain a heart of enlightenment, I can put it up on screen share, I think. Well, not easily, sorry. Okay. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment. So when does that come? That heart of enlightenment. I mean, that can be right now, or it can be a long way off. But until we attain that essence, that heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddhas, I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. So these are the 3 jewels: Om, Ah, Hom, the body, the speech, and the mind. The body of the Buddha is the Sangha. The speech of the Buddha is the Dharma. The mind of the Buddha is the Buddha himself. So until I attain enlightenment, I'm going to take refuge in these 3 jewels. Until we're able to sustain that perfectly, till we become the embodiment, till we become the Buddha, we need to rely on these 3 jewels. So I take refuge in these 3 jewels. The next stanza says, as the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. So as the previous Buddhas, how many Buddhas have there been? There have been countless Buddhas. We don't know. There's so many. And these previous Buddhas, how did they get to be Buddhas? Buddhas, by definition, is an awakened human being. It's not some supernatural being that is outside of us. We are part of what it is to be Buddha. And these Buddhas have gone through all these stages of being a practitioner, becoming a yogi or a yogini, becoming a bodhisattva, going through all the bodhisattva purification levels, and then finally becoming Buddha by being able to liberate all sense of being a human being as our dualistic nature. So as all these Buddhas have done this, they've embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on this bodhisattva's path. That's how they got to be Buddhas. And that's what we are doing ourselves. That's what we should be doing ourselves, progressing along the bodhisattva's path. I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, I'm stating, here is the cause of why I am doing this. For the benefit of all sentient beings, I give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. So there's the commitment to the result and the commitment to the cause. I give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. So this is the vow that we take, that we recite this every day, and that we heartfelt think about this, contemplate this. And at times it catapults us into this state of bodhicitta, into the realization of bodhicitta. So now go to the page 18 in your prayer book. And the last stanza of that page is the simple 4-line bodhicitta prayer that says, bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind. Where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. So this is a choice. This is a choice to give birth to it, and it is a choice to maintain it and to allow it to grow, to make it grow, to cultivate it, to grow. So this is a choice that we make. And so this gives the intention for all our practice, for everything that we're doing. Everything has to do with bodhicitta. This is the essence. This is the core. Anybody have any questions or comments about this?
Lance, just something really quick. I was reading a book called Highest Yoga Tantra, and it was
Yes.
talking about, I really had a hard time understanding what the meditational deities are all about. They didn't make any sense to me. Are they real? And just something that helped me, in addition to what you've been saying, is that it says the tantras are the discourses taking the form of various meditational deities or ideal beings taught secretly to special disciples. So I guess it's these meditational deities are the Buddha, the historical Buddha, Sakyamuni, communicating through the meditational deities. Is that a good way to understand it?
Yes. So to put it in other words, but the idea is the same, that Shakyamuni Buddha was kind of channeling these meditational Buddhas
Okay.
as a means to be able to give us examples of how to actualize that bodhicitta. So it was through Buddha Shakyamuni who brought this to us, for us to recognize this, but we've got it within us. We just needed his assistance to be able to help us to do that.
Thank you.
So to help us to do this, is there's ceremony, there's taking a vow to do this. You can take this vow on your own. You can write your own vow, or you can be part of the Sangha, as part of this Buddhism group and so on, and to allow you to have the brotherhood and the sisterhood to be able to develop and sustain this. So that's the concluding phase of this bodhisattva ceremony of doing this. First was the 7 branch prayer, The next was taking the vow, and next was to make this part of a ceremony. So every day that we do these practices is a ceremony that we are engaging in. And the more that we do it, the more substantial it becomes in stabilizing our heart center, being able to understand this true nature, this fundamental Buddha, or rather this bodhicitta, this ultimate state of Buddhahood. So at this point, we've come to a conclusion. We've run out of time. So we'll continue this next week. This still needs a little bit more explanation. We're going to be talking about emptiness on Monday night. So if you have a chance, if you want to join us for that, because all this is all interconnected. So, so I hope you're putting these pieces together and starting to find a way to make a time where you can develop your own practice for contemplation and for meditation. Okay. So now we do our dedication. Does anybody have any other questions or comments?
That was beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for everything today.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. So if you're doing your practices and you're reading about these things and you're developing questions, please write them down so we can talk about them. You know, we learn more from doubts that rise up, from questions that rise up, from uncertainty that rises up, and getting those resolved, getting those answered, at least to a degree where we can further contemplate what it means, what those questions are, what those concerns are, and so on. This is part of the process. So don't feel like it's anything that you don't want to, ask what might appear to be a stupid question. There's nothing like that. This is the way that we learn. This is the way that we do it. Okay. So we go to our Buddhism 101 book, and we go to page 18, 19, etc., and we'll recite these dedication prayers. So we're dedicating the merit, the wisdom that we have attained through these practices, through these teachings. We are dedicating for the benefit of the enlightenment of other beings. We're not selfishly holding it ourselves. We are sharing it with other beings. We are aiming it at them. Dorje Chang, Talopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Dormalor Gampopa, Pagma Drupa, and Lordri Kumpa, please bestow upon us the most auspicious blessing of all the Kagyu Lamas. By this virtue, may I achieve the all-knowing state, and may all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating all enemies, confusion, the cause of suffering. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind. Where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health. I pray that the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activities spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. As Manjushri, the warrior, realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all merit for all sentient beings. By the blessing of the Buddha who attained the three kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit. By the virtues collected by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Trikumpa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of Yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yoginis, and Dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Shravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Mars, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, and bodhicitta, and through that, may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May the torment of suffering, may I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you all very much for paying attention, being here, engaging in these teachings and practices. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you, everybody.
Very much.
Thank you, Lance.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Hope to see you soon. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lance.
Cheery, bye-bye. Have a good day.
Everyone.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.